This is an exhibit I made that tells about our trip to Arizona. This middle part up to here is telling about Sedona. This is at the top of the canyon. Sedona is a village that's inside this huge canyon, and you can actually walk around inside it. There are camping grounds, a creek, all sorts of things, and it's wonderful to explore. This is Malachi at the top of the canyon, and when you drive down inside, you're right up against the rock face spiraling downward, and you can see like all the layers, all the trees all around you, and then on the edge of the road is like a sheer drop almost. And so driving down is a super cool experience, slightly terrifying, especially if you're the driver. Fortunately, I was not. But then when you get to the bottom, it looks kind of more like a desert. This is inside the bottom of Sedona. There are all sorts of interesting red rock formations. They've even built a cathedral into the rock. See, this rock right here is not in front of the cathedral is built over it. Here are some neat statues in Sedona. There's a boy with his dog, an apple being peeled, 3 children going over a log, which kind of reminds me of our backyard, a cowboy artist painting a picture, and although this photo doesn't have it included, there's, by this cowboy, a little girl standing and photographing him. It's also a statue. This is one of the javelinas that they have all over the city of Sedona. It's a city project. They have painted javelina statues all over the city.
And what is a javelina?
A javelina is kind of like a pig and a hog that lives in the desert, and it eats cactus. We have seen several javelina bites inside cactus, just walking around frequented trails. It's not like they're rare or anything. They're all over the place. And you can see their bite marks in cactus everywhere. I've been wondering how they get past the spines, but I don't know. You should Google it. This is a statue of Sacagawea and her baby Pomp. And this is me with the statue. I kind of had to cut some of myself off to fit it on the piece of paper, though. This is us on a hike in Sedona. You can see right here some of the cactus. Here's another example of a cactus. This is a prickly pear cactus. It's the type that the javelina eats. This is Aunt Linda on the hike. An I Heart Sedona sticker that we got at the visitor center, and some rocks that I think I found there. I got so many rocks, so I can't be sure. These are 2 different rock formations and us standing by them. And that's all of the pictures that I have about Sedona, but you really should look online or in a book somewhere to learn more about it. It's a very interesting place. Right here are a few pictures of what I call everyday life in Arizona, although life there was not in particular every day. Here's me up in the rafters. I was helping Uncle Roger and Dad and Paul, to build a house that they're going to live in soon. That's in fact why we came to Arizona, so Dad could help them build their house. I had figured out how to climb up on the scaffold and sit up on the ceiling. I think it's really cool. They're going to leave their ceiling beams exposed so that you can hang stuff from it, even hammocks or swing chairs or whatever. This is us all eating dinner. And this is the outside of the house. And this is the Hotel Monte Vista. It's a place that we passed a lot in Flagstaff, Arizona. And it's on a lot of postcards. I think, don't quote me on it, but I think that this was one of the very first buildings built in Flagstaff. And this is a cactus I have as an example because it really reminds me of the century tree. I know it's not because this plant cannot be 100 years old. We got it at Walmart. But the century tree is kind of like this, only much bigger and with more spines. And when it is 100 years old, the plant sends out this huge tree that is full of seeds, and then the seeds all blow away in the wind and the plant dies. But its seeds are now scattered all over the desert so it can grow more plants. This section of my exhibit, this flap right here, is about the time that we went snow skiing. It was super amazing. We had to make last minute plans. We thought that we were going to leave the day before, but we stayed an extra day just so that we could go skiing. There was an amazing deal. We could rent the skis, the boots, all of the gear that we needed. We could get lunch, and we could get a lift pass for only about $120 each, which if you haven't looked at ski prices,
$39 each, 120 total for you to add in.
120 total for 3 people. I didn't know it was that good. We were able to get our gear. We came really early. And then we were ready to learn how to ski and get on the slopes. It was Nathan and my first day to ever be skiing before. So when we got out on the snow, we were just delighted with even our very first tries at skiing, meaning sliding our skis around in the snow and pretending to go down big hills. But still, it was a lot of fun. When we got on the lift, we found out that it goes around in a big oval shape. One end goes up to the top of the mountain and the other comes back. And you're standing about right here. You have to stand in a platform, and then the lift comes around behind you and picks you up. You don't even have a split second to sit down before it's taking off up to the top of the mountain. And it's amazing how smooth it is. You'd think since it's kind of a rope system with cables and hooks and all that it would be jolting, but it's not. It just glides along in the air, and you're far above the treetops, and there aren't even seat belts. And when we got to the top of the mountain, or almost there, that explained to us that we wouldn't have time to step off the lift. It would just put us on a pile of snow, and we were expected to ski down. We had hardly had any practice, so we were very nervous, but we had no time to be, because conveniently he had waited till we were at the top of the mountain. And so before we knew it, we were trying to ski down the hill. I wiped out in I think 4 feet away from the lift where I started, because I did not know how to turn. Fortunately, Dad taught me, or I would have been in lots of trouble. And then we got on a bigger hill. It was very, very gradual slope. It wasn't a big mountain or anything, but still it was not a green trail. The green trails are for the very first beginners, and the blue trails are a little bit higher up. We were on a blue trail our first time because there were no green trails open. And so we were a bit nervous, but we learned bit by bit. We were skiing down the mountain, trying not to fall over on purpose, because we would get scared so much that we were going fast and fall over in a big bank of snow that was to our right. But soon we got on a much, much bigger hill. It was probably 20 feet across, on a very wide, and it went pretty steeply down. It was very icy because it was all man-made snow. And so in most parts it was either ice or slush on the trails because it was 60 degrees outside. Anyway, we tried to get down. I sat in the snow for quite some time before I could convince myself, yes, I could do it, and stood up and went way too fast, for my level at least, and learned how to zigzag so that it didn't go quite as fast and straight downhill. We made it down the mountain the first time, but it took about 2 hours, which is way too long, as most skiers do it in 15 minutes. But we were still ready to do it again. We got on a lift, and again, halfway up the mountain, Dad had another surprise for us. He had taken us on a trail where we would have to go down a black diamond to get back to the lift where we went on the blue trails. Black diamonds are only second to expert skiing trails, and so we were once again frightened. And when we came to the top of the lift, actually, I forgot to ski down, and so I had to press like a help button, and then they stopped the whole lift and helped me down. It was pretty embarrassing, and I think I'll get teased about it for the rest of my life. But when we were going down the Black Diamond Trail, Nathan and I scooted down for the whole way except for once when I stood up on a really big hill and then rolled over twice before landing in the snow, and I think I got scraped maybe. Then it was probably the most dramatic wipeout I've had in the whole trip. But then after that, we finally got to the bottom. It took us another 2 hours to get down the mountain, and by that time it was lunch. So we went to the restaurant. We had a $45 gift card that we had gotten with our Lyft pass and rentals. And so we got to eat. Dad got a pork sandwich, I got a bratwurst, and Nathan got a Nathan's hot dog, which he thoroughly enjoyed, especially since it was named after him. And then we got, or Dad and I wanted to go back up the mountain again, but Nathan was way too tired, and so he decided to wait by the lift while Dad and I went up. And so we did, and then I came to that little trail that we had been on first, the very first trail that we had been on, and I remember that it had seemed much too fast for me. And then I stood up on the snow, and I was just standing there and going maybe an inch a second, and I was thinking to myself, how was this fast just a few hours ago? But anyway, then we got on the bigger trail. I asked Dad later how fast he thought I was going, and he said that 30 miles an hour was a good guess. On my very first day skiing, I'm pretty proud of it, and I was zigzagging all over the place to try to not go too insanely fast, but I did end up going straight downhill several times. It was one of my favorite days of the whole trip. Over here on this side, I have an exhibit that's telling a little bit about the Petrified Forest. And the Petrified Forest is a national park that's made up of several different natural phenomena. There's the petrified wood that's scattered across the whole place. There's the painted desert, which is this right here. It's a beautiful series of mountains. There's the Blue Mesa, which are these hills with wonderful layers, and it has many other things. It's probably, I can't decide if it's second to Sedona or Sedona is second to it, but they're probably my top 2 most beautiful places to see in Arizona. See, the Blue Mesa is a series of hills. It's not just one, flat plateau like we thought at first. And it has, see, these red and blue and white and gray layers. And then the painted desert is this. It's a desert that's covered in the hills, and it's red sand, yellow sand, gray sand, everything mingling, and so you can see there's even sand layers, and you're allowed to climb on the hills, which we did. It was amazing. There's me looking out over the painted desert, and there's Lincoln. And
he's actually waving to you. You're out there somewhere.
Oh, okay. Then I'm probably out here on the end of this hill, and he's waving to me. I went out pretty far in the painted desert, but then getting back up over those hills that were sliding under you because it was all sand, it was very interesting. And here I'm pretending to fly over the painted desert. It really felt real because there was a wind coming at right in the exact angle, and if you turned, you felt like you were really gliding along it. And this is the Giant Logs Trail Guide that tells about some of the most amazing petrified logs in the park. It shows how the petrified logs were made and all of that. This is a petrified log that I got at one of the mines. There's a family-owned mine. It's been in the same family for generations. And they let people come and look for petrified wood, and then you can buy what you find. So this is us searching for wood. We got collectively, I think, a 12-gallon bucket full, and he only charged us $40. Whereas in the visitor center, a hunk of wood this big, polished, would have been $400 or more. This is a petrified log that he had back out in his backyard. This is the petrified wood stand. It says petrified wood 5 cents and up. It was probably from much earlier. But here's the sign for the Petrified Wood Museum. And as you can see, they're very scratched up, and the backyard looked just about the same. It was battered trucks, RVs, old cars. It would have looked super sketchy if Mom had not read the reviews already. But here are a few pictures of the actual petrified logs of the petrified logs that are actually in the national park. There's this one, which is on a postcard. The postcard pictures are such high quality ones, a lot of them, that it's interesting to see all of the different crystal layers. This is Mom and I, and you can see all of the petrified wood scattered behind us. It is literally everywhere. This is a bridge that was made from petrified log, naturally, not man-made. And this is the sign that says Petrified Forest National Park we took our picture by. And here's some more logs.
And what's this that you're wearing?
This is my junior ranger vest that we got at one of the national parks. In all of the national parks, they have what's called a junior ranger program, where they allow kids to come in and fill out booklets to earn junior ranger badges for that park. This one says Sunset Crater Volcano, Grand Canyon, and the Petrified Forest. And it's really neat. You can collect as many badges as you want from every national park across the country, and that's what I've been trying to do.
And how much does it cost?
It's free completely.
Mm-hmm. What are the requirements to earn a badge?
The requirements to earn the badge, you just have to fill out the booklet according to your age. In different parks, they have different rules. Some parks, they will sit you down and go through a full lecture about what are you going to do as a junior ranger, and how are you going to help the national parks. And in some of them, they just flip through, make sure that you wrote on all the pages, and then sign your name and you're done. So it really depends on the park. And one day we went to try prickly pear cactus. They're actually edible. We tried one and it tasted, it's hard to describe how it tasted, but it had the texture of okra, that kind of slimy but still nice texture. And it tasted sour and bitter and kind of almost spicy all at once. It was really a unique experience, and you should try it sometime if you ever go to the desert. Thank you for listening. I'm Kyla Cross, the Junior Ranger.